Chapter 2, Song of the Appleseed. In the dawn of day I cross the sea, nothing but my harp, the trees, and me. The hum of wind all cold and free, nothing but my harp, the trees, and me. The pang of hunger like a banshee, nothing but my harp, the trees, and me. Poverty aches oh so beastly, nothing but my harp, the trees, and me. Warmth, water, food is the key, nothing but my harp, the trees, and me. Will any God listening hear my plea? Nothing but my harp, the trees, and me. A cold wind blows over a young goblin girl, body frozen, hands shaking in the frozen wastes. It's winter, dark, cold, and frigid. Bags cover her eyes, as if she hasn't slept for days. Clutched in a ball to give herself any warmth, the girl clings to the ragged robe she does have. It's been months now of this, playing for money on the streets, praying to the gods that someone will drop more than a copper or two. Sometimes she was lucky to get a meal, but more often than not she found herself cold, alone, clutching her harp to her chest and hoping it wouldn't be a cold night. Unfortunately, winter isn't too kind in that regard. This winter was killing her. She had hardly eaten more than dumpster scraps for days, and winter's cold grasp was beginning to take her life. Her body was frozen, and she desperately clung to any warmth she had left. She couldn't take this pain any longer.
"All right there, friend," a chipper voice spoke to her. "Looks like you could use some help."
She looked up from where she lay in the alleyway, eyes fighting to stay open as frostbite wore at them. A kind face was beaming at her, a smile brighter than the sun. A gnome man stood in front of her, red hair patched across his head with a scruffy goatee, his shirt puffy, going down to his knees in a strange skirt-like fashion. He wore tights and leather-tanned shoes, and to his back, strapped, was a lute.
"You find yourself in quite the pickle there, friend," the gnome said. "You should come to the warmth of a tavern."
Was he mocking her? It was late, and deep into the night, far past the bar's hours. She had hardly any money for a cheap flagon of ale, let alone a night's stay at the inn.
"Not a fan of that, the gnome asked. "Well, I can't let a fellow bard just freeze out in the cold."
She was surprised when he extended a hand to her, helping pull her off the ground.
"And besides," he mused, "when fate brings us an opportunity, we take it. And something tells me you might be just that."
She was even more surprised when she was brought by him to the local inn, and a gold piece was placed on the counter for her stay.
"One room for me, and one room for my friend here," the gnome told the innkeep.
The human eyed her up and down, with judgment in his eyes. Her clothes were tattered and ragged, her green hair was unkempt and dirty, and her skin was almost blue, she was so cold.
"I assume that won't be a problem,"
the gnome noticed the innkeeper's hesitancy.
"For the Muse of March."
It was then that both the goblin and the innkeeper noticed a small pin on the gnome's collar, fit with a beautiful lute carved in gold. The gnome wore it proudly. The innkeeper's demeanor changed, as if he was a peasant greeting a king. He handed the gnome 2 keys, one which he handed to her, along with a small pouch of coin.
"Get yourself a drink and a nice meal in the morning," the gnome told her. "It would do you some good."
She had so many questions. No one was ever so kind to her. Why her? Why show such kindness towards a stranger? And what was the muse of March? When she asked such questions, the gnome laughed. "Come hear me play tomorrow, sweetheart. You'll learn." She slept that night burning with curiosity. She couldn't remember ever having actually been able to watch a bard play. Occasionally she would be able to hear the sounds of music when carousing outside the tavern, but never part of the proper audience. She grabbed a heaping mug of apple cider and sat herself down for the show. The gnome was mesmerizing, commanding the stage with confidence. Nearly all eyes in the tavern were drawn to him, and among the crowd were even some nobles in the area. His music was serene and graceful. All that was missing was a harp. Excitedly, she approached the merry gnome after his performance. Nervous, but butterflies dancing in her heart, she asked if she could join him. A duo of bards. The gnome, Simeon, as she later learned, grinned from ear to ear. "I was hoping you'd say that." Simeon took her under her wing, and suddenly it was as if her whole world was upside down. The pair taught each other music and wrote new songs. She told stories of great heroes and tall tales of dragons and giants and great monstrosities. Simeon treated her like family, even calling her a sister, and she had never known such love than with him. But more than that, somehow even greater, was the fame. Everywhere the goblin went, she was treated like a queen. Audience held captive by her every word and note, praising her beauty and her way with the harp, dousing her in riches and fine wine and feast. She never once experienced even a pang of hunger, not a chill of poverty's cold breath. She had no worries, only fortune and fame. The pair grew in notoriety in the country, getting more popular by the day, it seemed. They spent the following years in bliss, a true force to be reckoned with in the world of music. That was until the king's contest. "One bard chosen," sang the criers. "One bard to meet kings and queens across the countries and around the world." Royalty across the whole world? The goblin girl couldn't even begin to fathom. She already felt like a queen. Imagine impressing dozens of royals. The food she would eat, the drinks she would be served, the fashion she would adorn. She couldn't think of anything better. Simeon agreed. They would try out for the competition. Only one could be the king's chosen, but they worked better as a team. However, a doubt began to fill the harp player's mind. Sure, she could outperform other bards who may come try, but Simeon was something else entirely. He was a true bard, through and through, charming, clever, and damn talented with his lute. She knew her skill, but if anyone was to best her, it would be him. The duo arranged an audience with the king, each prepared to sing their song. First, the harp. She took to center stage and began to pluck her strings, singing her song of poverty and the comfort she found in her harp. The king was clearly impressed. She bowed to him and felt her heart dance in her chest. Surely it would be her who won the contest. Until Simeon began. He plucked his lute, singing a story of a grand hero, a daring tale of intrigue and love, and a beautiful princess to a lowly knight. The king and his queen, as well as the guards and fellow bards, all found themselves gripped to the tale, even the goblin herself. "Well," laughed the king as Simeon concluded, "seems as though we have a winner." The goblin's heart sunk. She felt her world shatter as her mind raced. If Simeon was out of the Muses of March, what did this mean? She was alone. She would be back on the streets in no time. No one wanted a goblin like her. She was doomed to fall back right where she began. And the thought absolutely horrified her. That afternoon, as Simeon spoke with the king about his venture, she hatched a plan. She couldn't return to the life she had desperately clawed away from. She needed to be the one who was chosen by the king. She needed fame. That night, while Simeon slept, she snuck into his chambers. Brandishing a dagger in her hand, she plunged it firmly into his heart, blood spurting from his chest and covering her hands. As he retched in pain, he spoke faintly. "Sister Appleseed." He looked at her in disbelief. "You..." "Sorry, old friend." Her eyes cold, devoid of feeling. The king is only looking for one bard to sponsor. She twisted the dagger in his wound, reveling in the sound of his desperate scream. She felt a bit of a twisted, wicked feeling in her stomach, power-hungry. She found herself smiling when she said, "And besides, a good bard once told me, when fate brings us an opportunity, we take it." Simeon's eyes turned dark, and she knew it was done. She returned to the king that morning, crying a desperate plea that Simeon had been murdered in his sleep. The king, saddened though he was by the passing of his true champion, resorted to his second option, Appleseed, the goblin bard. The years passed with her traveling from country to country, performing for lords, ladies, and everything in between. Her fame never once dwindled, only rose as more royals sang her praises. Every now and then she would think of Simeon, and feel a cruel smile come across her lips, with no remorse of the life she had taken so willingly. She now lives happily in the spotlight, a bard of whispers and darkness disguised as one of eloquence and kindness. She will never return to the life she once lived, and may the gods help anyone who stands in her way.